This is called Learn from Yesterday. It was originally written as a song in 2014 and then updated after the American election. Valentino's leaving by the back door. Romeo can't take it anymore. Casanova wonders what they're waiting for. Says it's time to quit, and that's for sure. Franco's trying to keep his nose clean. Mussolini's lying about where he's been. Hitler's saying things he doesn't mean, and Stalin's standing somewhere in between. I don't understand what's going on. I guess it's time to finally move away. Can't do right for always doing wrong. Sit back and learn from yesterday. Queen Victoria's really not amused, and Albert feels like he's just being used. Shakespeare's all strung out on drugs and booze, and wanders round just looking so confused. The king searched everywhere but lost his crown. The prince says he must have just to put it down. His sister's fed up with just standing round, 'cause it won't fit her even if it's found. I don't understand what's going on. I guess it's time to finally move away. Can't do right for always doing wrong. Sit back and learn from yesterday. Canute is waiting for the tide to turn, while Plato looks for some things new to learn. Guy Fawkes is praying that the wood won't burn. Cleopatra waits for Antony's return. Trump is closed up in his ivory tower. Kim Jong threatening to use all his power. John and Yoko just hold out a flower. Hope someone sees sense in the final hour. This one is called Shifting Sand and comes from October of 2018. The poets and the dreamers build their castles made of sand. Politicians and the schemers do things we don't understand. They hide behind their false masks while pretending that they care, and ignore the questions we all ask, though they know it isn't fair. But we could have the last laugh, and they won't see the joke. They only listened to the half of sentences we spoke, so they missed the crucial evidence of what's threatening our nation. They fail to use their common sense to see their walls have no foundation. Because the people with the power build their castles made of steel, and only in the final hour will they come to see what's real. That the concrete reinforcement will all one day be as dust, and though it's never their intent, they will one day see it's just that the structures that their money built, their towers of steel and stone, were constructed with no sense of guilt of the damage they have done. But the fact that they have not deduced, the thing they'll never understand, is that all the castles they produced were all built on shifting sand. This is called Accept the Love, based on the idea that we accept the love that we think that we deserve, which I must admit did come from a film. It's been a song, it's now a poem. If we are loved too easily, we take it all for granted. We often aim too high and take the risk of getting burned. If we're never told we're truly loved, we end up disenchanted and accept the love of someone though we know it's not returned. If we're not convinced from childhood that we really are deserving, we'll never raise our game and just continue aiming low. If we're loved with no conditions, we can just end up self-serving, and how and why we do can take a whole lifetime to know. The lower our self-esteem, the less we dare to dream. The more worthwhile we're told we are, the higher we set the bar. So we accept the love we think that we deserve, predetermining how high we fly before we lose our nerve. So we settle for a love that falls within our comfort zone, and never take a chance or aim too high or go too deep. Or we always dream beyond it at the risk of ending up alone, and treat our love as something to be borrowed, not to keep. The lower our self-esteem, the less we dare to dream. The more worthwhile we're told we are, the higher we set the bar. So we accept the love we think that we deserve, predetermining how high we fly before we lose our nerve. We accept the love we think that we deserve. This next section is concerned with art and poetry, and the first poem is called Debunk. Poets take life seriously, when it's really quite a laugh. Poets aren't just in two minds, they tear themselves in half. They can't live in the present tense, they dwell on all that's past. But nothing really makes much sense, and nothing's meant to last. They struggle with what's to believe, it's neither God nor man. They might as well believe in dog and do the best they can. They write inside their own world in the middle of the night. They're always on the outside, but they always know what's right. And they correct the world's wrongs when no one else will bother. They rate their poems much more than songs, and their own more than another. But in the end it's all just words, just trying to express the same thoughts everyone has had and uttered more or less. That's not to say they're valueless. Sometimes words are all we need, and a world where nothing's spoken would be a desperate place indeed. Let's not forget what Sting said about poets, priests and politicians. He might have added teachers who thank words for their positions. And all my life I've taught and sung, and all my thoughts are spoken, and everything's been written down before the spell was broken. Byron said, there must be more to life than blacking paper. I hope to dog I find the truth before it all turns into vapour. This is called The Art of the Matter, and was written following a visit to Tate Modern in 2008. The crack referred to is Doris Salcedo's Shibboleth, funded as part of the Unilever series, and, according to the reviewers, is a striking at the very foundations of the museum, to quote them, and apparently prompts a broader consideration of power's divisive operations as encoded in the brutal narratives of colonialism. Yes, of course it does. In countless years of lectures, I've defended modern art against statements and conjectures from students at the start of the process of proceeding from embryonic Philistine through a whole wide range of reading to a view quite close to mine. That the message is the thing, in the absence of a form, that the poet can still bring the real meaning, though the norm may be abstract and, what's worse, unrhyming and unstructured, wide-ranging and far-reaching, and dare I say, free verse. I've even made the claim to a group of local poets, but it's pretty much the same in all the arts, and though it's harder to defend when confronted with a word, to restrict what or how a poet writes is patently absurd. I remember once defending Lawrence's Lady Chatterley and his use of 4 letters, but have you heard what's happened latterly? In spite of pleading from their betters, all today's young people use the language of the bloopers and swear and curse like TV chefs, far worse than any troopers. But with my mind decided and my liberal qualification, I went, though it's derided, to the art house of the nation, Tate Modern in the spring, to see an exhibition. And surely it would bring, without hint of inhibition, a collection of inspired intent to send my senses reeling. But what on God's good earth was meant beneath that cavernous ceiling? The floor contains just one long crack, as if there's been an earthquake. It zigzags right across from front to back, and how much art does that take? It's claimed to be a statement on the history of race, but it's just like one cracked pavement that spreads out across the place. And up above in galleries, though my judgment now was tainted, by artists on huge salaries, such a price I nearly fainted, were paintings Colonel Blimp would claim his dog could well have painted. And so it made me question if all this art together gives intellectual indigestion, an overdose, and whether, instead of liberating minds and popular misconceptions, it simply just confirms those kind of pseudo-art pretensions. It makes you yearn for poems that rhyme and paintings that look real, and sculpture from a simpler time when you literally had to feel just to ensure they were inanimate, not just someone standing still. Sometimes freedom can contaminate. I suppose it always will. But as I left the turbine hall, at least admissions free, I felt a comment on it all start building up in me. It's not in my nature to holler. I had to quell the instinct to shout. It's as if there's $1 million corporate-funded elephant in the room that no one is talking about. This section is concerned with that one area where poets and songwriters can't help themselves, basically the subject of love. I won't tell you that I love you as my breathing becomes heavy. It's a burden that is mine alone to bear. You spoke of your love first, and though I soon rehearsed, the words still stuck in my throat. As scapegoat, I blamed my thirst and rushed for other juices to ease what I would claim was just another cough, the same as singing sad old love songs produces. And orange squash that still could quash, just as soap and water wash the cursing mouth of a child, would dissolve the words that could solve the impasse. If only I had told you, maybe now I still could hold you. Instead, I drowned the words I love you while I was washing up the glass. This is called First Mate, or Captain of the Heart. Though the times have changed and years have passed, with voyages uncharted to many a strange ill-chosen land, those still sad captains are left at last in unsafe harbours of illusion as you seek the life you planned. Your luxury yacht flags fore and aft from new safe havens firmly set upon its chosen course once more. Some day may my rudderless drifting raft, if winds are kind and tides are strong, be washed up on that self-same shore. This one is called Of Course I Love You, and was written in what another singer in the early 70s described as my male guilt period. Of course I love you, he said, reaching for a cigarette across the bed. Or why do you think I keep on coming round? But the tears were brimming in her eyes, the smoke curled like his tongue around his lies, and she didn't really hear a sound. Why do you go on fooling yourself when you already know the truth? Why go on making a fool of yourself, giving all your love and all your youth, and all yourself, and all you've got to give, to a second best that you can see? Keep your love, and learn what to live and to love could really be. I must leave you now, he said, kissing her goodbye across the bed. I'll see you as soon as I can come around. But the tears were brimming in her eyes. The smoke curled like his tongue around his lies, and she didn't really hear a sound. And she didn't hear a sound, not even the rain pouring down, or his coat being dragged from the hook, or the sigh he gave as he turned for one last look, or the click as he turned out the light, or the door shutting out the street and the night, or the early morning milkman on his round, or the cleaner when she came in and found her still lying there on the bed, dead.